Welcome to the Gleeful Meeple, a podcast all about board games where strategy meets laughter and every top deck is a chance for perfection or discard fodder. In this episode, we're reminded that there's no I in team as we discuss cooperative games. We return to space to find water, raise temperatures, and bring corporate greed to the galaxy in this week's game of the show, Terraforming Mars. And you, the Gleeples, get to play along as the hosts get put in the hot seat with this week's game challenge. So choose your corporation, prepare your resources, and make good choices when drafting those cards, because terraforming a dry planet isn't easy. And without those sweet, sweet tags, you'll be left in the dust. Hosts, welcome back to the table.
I'm Emily.
Hi, this is Dwayne.
Hi, Dwayne.
This is JK, but according to the Wu-Tang name generator, I am Lucky Destroyer.
Oh, man.
Or are we doing this on the fly right now? Or are we going to pull up the Wu-Tang name?
I did this morning, yeah.
Oh, my word.
I don't know if I have the patience for that. Hey, guys, this is James, the Destroyer.
Lucky Destroyer. I think that kind of like leans into my gameplay skills. Oh.
See, now I'm curious.
Mine says passive fromage. What does that mean?
Cheesy.
Gentle cheese.
Gentle
Give
cheese.
a gentle
Yeah.
cheese.
Like a soft cheese, like a brie?
Mine's amateur watcher, and I just feel called out.
Oh. Like in a pervy sense?
No,
watching?
please don't say that.
Okay.
So see, I took it as Marvel Comics sense. So she's like Uatu's
A junior league
she's-
Uatu.
a junior watcher.
Yeah.
And proud we are of all of them.
There you go.
Emily looks
Emily has
confused.
no idea what the Watcher is.
The Watcher has been introduced.
No,
in the,
yeah, in What If? I love that show.
Okay. There you go. Okay.
I'm just like battling with myself to buy into this.
Are you really passive fromage? Is that
Oh no, I just came up with that.
Nice. Okay.
I'm trying to find this name generator, and all I get is warnings to not continue through to this website. So I'm just gonna not. I'll just not.
That's because Wu-Tang Clan is nothing to mess with.
Oh, Dwayne, dropping that. That's great.
Well, guys, I have not a riddle this time. Another haiku.
Oh?
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
So a few things. I love the haikus. I love the riddles too, and I'm really glad. Like, never expected, always appreciated, James. So keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Hopefully, listeners can maybe catch this one before our hosts do. I'll say it slowly to give you all a chance. Fulfill noble demands. Decorate, be seen. An explosion of opulence.
I know it. It is the dressmaking game that we've played.
Rococo?
It's Rococo.
With the snipe, Emily took it.
Thanks,
You're
Dwayne.
the worst.
Was it the last line that gave it away? Really?
I think it was actually I had it from the first line.
Okay.
That was my one thought and my only thought. It just got
Yeah.
stronger.
That
You
makes
just
sense.
reinforced it as you went through the second and third lines.
Okay.
James, according to the Wu-Tang name generator, you are Shrieking Commander.
Shrieking Commander.
That's not bad.
My bass voice might disagree with that a little bit. Would you know? I actually, if you never met me, I'm not exactly a tall statured person. I sang bass in chorus when I was in school.
Oh.
I might be a very short person, so shrieking. I'm not really sure.
Dwayne, you are Profound Mercenary.
Okay. I like that better than
That tracks.
passive fromage.
Okay. Going back to Rococo. Fantastic game. I have never played the original print of that, only the deluxe edition, and I can't imagine going back from the deluxe edition to play the regular one.
No, I mean, there's something to be said. Sometimes deluxe components do really, I would say, help the playability of a game just really stand out. And this doesn't need functionally. The game doesn't change with the nice components, but man, the theme just really lends itself to being fancy.
I do like how how upgraded components can make a good game great, but it won't make a bad game good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
the game
yeah.
still has to be good.
Yeah.
So, guys, we have a treat for you today.
A treat?
A treat. This is I wouldn't say a dicey topic, but it's it's a style of game that not everybody always enjoys. Let's chat for a little while. Let's get around the campfire together
Together?
and say nice things about cooperative games.
Aww. We're going to collaborate on a cooperative game topic. That's so sweet.
Yeah, so stop. Collaborate. Listen.
Oh, man.
I was like, stop what?
Glee is back with the brand new edition.
One of when I got into board gaming, one of the first games I purchased because of its relatively low entry level price was Forbidden Island, which was one of the first cooperative games I ever played. I definitely graduated from that pretty quickly, but the family enjoyed it. We liked it, and that definitely turned me on into cooperative gaming, which I don't think I had seen prior to that in my old school board gaming.
There weren't many games prior to that were cooperative. So a little history on that game. Many of you might know the board game Pandemic. It's kind of one of those games that kicked off cooperative gaming. There was a couple others before, but this was the big hit.
I would agree with that.
That really drove cooperative games and other designers to start making them.
It kind of put it into the public knowledge more than the games the co-op games that had come before it.
For sure.
And like going back to our mainstream versus hobby, like this was a game that we saw in like Target or Barnes and
Toys R
Nobles.
Us. Oh, remember Toys R Us, everyone? Oh, it was great, and they carried Pandemic.
They might be our sponsor soon.
So yeah, maybe. So Forbidden Island's the same designer as Pandemic, Matt Leacock. So he was that's one of his games that he came out with after Pandemic, and it became its own mini series. There's Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert,
Forbidden Skies.
Yes.
Sky. Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's just a trilogy right now, although I want to say there's a fourth one coming out.
I feel like they may have just released a fourth one.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but even when that came out for the original Forbidden Island, there still weren't that many. Right, that's just when Pandemic hit, was getting popular, and he came out with that pretty soon after. So not surprising that's an early memory for lots of people on cooperative games.
Yeah, Forbidden Island was an early co-op game for me. They had like the iPad version, or like the app version was Forbidden Isle. So that was very confusing to me.
So you couldn't go down like a certain aisle at the supermarket?
No, not A-I-S-L-E, I-S-L-E. And so, and that was like a good game for my brother and I. He can be very competitive. And so that was something like we could do together and just like bond over, socialize over, with like no one getting any kind of like feelings about winning or losing. And so that was a nice compromise for like us growing up, like as teenagers.
Yeah, and they're not difficult games. The Forbidden Island series of games.
No,
they're not as punishing as Pandemic.
Especially when an app is telling you what you can and can't do.
Yeah. So Forbidden Jungle is that newest one.
Yeah.
Pandemic started off that co-op craze, and then a bunch of games started coming out after that. And I feel like we've gone through a phase to where we don't see as many cooperative games being made anymore. Is that just me?
I think you don't see anything that's quite as obvious of a cooperative game as Pandemic, but you do see a lot of dungeon crawlers. You see a lot of games that have a group goal, Gloomhaven, Nemesis, games like that are still in the cooperative environment. I don't think people consider them quite Pandemic-like, but they're still filling that niche of games that we're not playing head-to-head against each other.
And as long as Fantasy Flight keeps making Arkham Files games, I think we will always have new co-op games, because I can't think of anything in their current Arkham line that is competitive. Unfathomable is one of those trader co-ops, so there's that. But yeah, and that's a series that I play quite a bit of. Also a very early like cooperative game, because the original Arkham Horror has been out since the 90s.
Yeah. Our recent episodes, we talked during the Space Base episode that I didn't have a whole lot of space-themed games. We talked during the IP release episode that I didn't have a whole lot of IP-based games. I kind of took a quick dive in collection and said, what do I have that's competitive? And I was genuinely surprised. I stopped counting it at 10. That I've got a good amount. Marvel United, Marvel Champions, kind of the obvious ones, but Atlantis Rising, Cthulhu Death May Die, Mysterium, Ultra, Dead of Winter, Pandemic, which we've already mentioned, Shadows over Camelot. There's a ton.
You said competitive.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that. Cooperative.
So we've talked kind of about the history. I'm curious, like, what is everyone's, you just listed some of the games that you own, JK. What is everyone's, like, initial, like, gut reaction when someone kind of, like, brings up a co-op game or just to play, or what's your general feeling about the topic?
Well, here's my problem with cooperative games. I don't have a problem with them because I'm smart and loud. And if I'm playing a cooperative game, my voice is probably going to be heard. I'm probably going to be the one that's talking over other players in the game. I don't think I'm quite an alpha gamer. I'm not telling other people how they should play their game, but I'm also not shy about speaking up. Now, where I think cooperative games might take a hit is on our shyer players, your people that are socially awkward, just want to sit quietly and play a game with a group of people. I think they're going to get drowned out in a cooperative game.
Yeah, alpha gamer is a pretty common term that gets thrown around when you talk about cooperative games. Also, quarterbacking.
Quarterbacking is an issue in cooperative games for sure.
Yeah, and some people, to your point, I think some quiet people actually just enjoy sitting in the background and just going along with the flow. But others who are just introverts but have something to say, that is a very frustrating position to be in when somebody is kind of given all the demands about what to do, the best possible moves, and then let's just do this, and then they don't feel like they're actually playing their own game.
Yeah.
They're just being told what to do.
So I think it has like that similar dynamic of like, yeah, sometimes board games do depend on like who you play with, just period. Like competitive ones and cooperative ones. People sometimes can make or break the experience. That's all. Like I think for me, it allows kind of like the social aspect. So it's like if there's someone like JK on the team who's like just talking to us about every type of move we could do and why one is better than the other, then that's an opportunity to maybe engage in dialogue of like why, like, and I can see the scenario in which like the shy person where you're just trying to get used to the game or get used to like the concepts of gaming and strategies of gaming. It might be nice to like see how other people think, and you might have like one good idea every few turns.
I try, because I know I'm loud, I try not to manage other people's games when I'm playing cooperatively, but what I will do is say, okay, here's where I see we can go in the next few turns. What do you guys think is our best option? And try and get the group to collectively decide where we're going.
That's what, and as someone who's played an escape room with you, you're like that there as well, because that can be another experience where people just get really excited to solve the puzzles, and then you just see like the same three people.
Get out of my way! I'm doing this one.
Yeah,
and it can take a real conscious effort for it to not be a bad gaming experience for someone like you, JK, that always has something a recommendation to throw out to the table, is to let someone say, "I want to do this," and just let it be.
Yeah.
Like let them actually just, even though it's not the most optimized play, you can see how it's going to just create havoc 3 turns from now.
Yeah,
like we can do that. Yeah, I think I want to do that. Okay, let's do that. And just let it go.
If you want to do that, we're going to lose, but we can do it your way. That's fine. We'll do it your way. That's fine.
Passive aggressive much.
That's what. And then sometimes it is just fun to see like, oh, what chaos can ensue. Like I think it's going to go bad, but like, will it actually? Like, and just have it be proven or disproven.
Try a different route.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you can approach it from that perspective, co-op games can be a lot of fun, where you just kind of let it happen. Like, yeah, winning is great. We're going to try our best, but, I mean, we're okay with a little bit of chaos thrown in there, too.
So we talked about the people experience of co-op games. What about the game itself? What makes a good co-op game? And what makes a bad co-op game?
I tend to like co-op games that have asymmetrical characters. So Pandemic fits that mold. Arkham fits that mold. Battlestar, Galactica.
What do you mean by asymmetric?
So you basically character powers, right?
Each individual player
yeah.
has
Yes.
something unique about them.
Yeah. And that way, that makes it a little more interesting than it's been a while since I played anything in the Forbidden series. Is there?
Yes, there's roles.
Yes.
There are
Yeah.
roles.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, he brought that from Pandemic.
No,
Being
'cause
a
that's
Matt
what-
Lecoq game.
Yep.
Yeah, like there have been games of like Pandemic and Forbidden Island where I've played where it's like we didn't have that role, we all lost the game almost every time.
Do we consider Betrayal on the House on Haunted Hill a cooperative
Oh,
game?
I would. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a trader co-op.
Yeah.
But yes.
I hate
Yep.
that game.
Go on.
And,
Tell me more.
And here's the main reason why. I think the idea behind the game is fantastic, but
Mm-hmm.
depending on the group you're playing with, those of you that aren't familiar with Betrayal on the House of the Hill, you are exploring a haunted house. And as a team, you are collectively working together to kind of build out the rooms of the house, searching from point A to point B all throughout the place.
That part of the game's fantastic.
That's great. But then at some point, you are going to reveal the evil, and one of you actually becomes the evil player. Now, where I think the game pivots and where it fails miserably a lot of the time, depending on the skill level of that player.
Yes.
If they're a brand new gamer, they've never been played a game before, and then you hand them this rule book and say, hey, go sit in the corner and figure this out. Don't tell us the rest of us what you're doing. It kind of crashes the whole game.
Yeah, because it's not just a card.
No,
it's a go to the rule book. You have new rules now.
Yeah. You have
that you can't discuss with anyone else
that
in
is
the game.
okay.
Yeah, you can't
Yes.
ask questions.
I do, as much as I love the Betrayal series, my two issues are: one, the trader can pop up at any time. I think it's completely possible to have a first, or at least if not first turn, like an early trader in the game, which can make things difficult for just in general. But then most of the times I play, it's always the new player who is going to be the trader. It just, not that they're assigned that role. It just happens. It's just the dumb luck of the die. It's the same thing with Battlestar. Like it seems like new players are always the sidelines, and it's the hardest thing to play in the game because you have to play it really well. And it's true with Betrayal as well.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the downfall for Dead of Winter for me as well, which I think is a great game, but it's overly complicated. There's a lot going on in Dead of Winter where you have a possible trader, you've got a group goal that you're trying to achieve, but you've also got individual goals you're trying to achieve. Then there's a storytelling element that comes into it. There's just a lot. There's a lot to that game. I think where I really have the most fun with competitive cooperative games are simple concepts. Just play it. Here's a simple scenario. Go win this. And if you like that scenario, hey, here's a book of another 140 scenarios you can play that you can kind of expand into.
Yeah, I like it when every player's turn is interesting. So to your point, Dwayne, right, those asymmetric powers, something that makes each player's choices unique and meaningful to where it doesn't seem like a foregone conclusion when it comes around to their turn.
Yeah.
Right, there's always something interesting to think about. And right, dungeon crawls are great for that because usually you're all kind of a special character of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even plan ahead to go, okay, we really need Dwayne's special power to kick in, but that's not going to happen for 3 more turns. How do the 3 of us survive
How can we mitigate
long enough to
that?
get there
Yeah.
so that Dwayne can do what he needs to do?
And I think those like roles help create variability in the game, which I think is like crucial to any game for me. Because it's like sometimes there's more roles than players, and so then it's like, okay, we're gonna play this game without this role this time.
Well, to your point, you can increase the difficulty of most co-op games by leaving certain roles out, right? And I'm not remembering Pandemic, the role in Pandemic right now, but there is a role. Medic is hot in Pandemic.
Is a great one.
And the other one,
I've been playing a lot with like Quarantine Specialist.
What is Quarantine Specialist's power?
A city that you're in or surrounding you cannot be infected. And so it's like if you have
the illness can't break out of that city.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
Yeah. And so if you have that, especially paired with the dispatcher, and like, because I've also been playing like 2-player games on BGA by myself.
Okay.
Solo 2-player. But the dispatcher, so it's like on the dispatcher's turn, you can move it if you know that like, oh, we're about to draw like 3 or 4 infection cards and like this city is really close to breaking out around all these like heavily infected cities. You just place them right there. That saves you like a turn.
What is the character that allows you to mess with the card trading rules? I find that one is very
Card
helpful.
trading.
Yeah,
Because
very powerful.
Usually you have to be, in order for me to give you a card, we both have to be
Yes.
in that city. But
Researcher, scientist.
I can't remember. You'd think I'd know because I just finished playing
I know.
through
I
Pandemic
was like-
Legacy Season 2.
I was just playing this before our last recording.
But we made sure that character was in most of our sessions.
They're very good because it is hard to get around the board and get lined up in
Yeah.
a city to spend an action to trade a card. Whereas that character is just like, take my card, you take whichever one you want. Yeah, it makes the game a lot easier.
So it's like, yeah, so those games are great. You have different strategy depending on what roles exist, not exist. Other games that I think do well with variability are games like The Crew, which is a cooperative trick-taking game. I played this at Tennessee Game Days this past March. And basically, the group you're with gets to pick their difficulty level, and based off of the difficulty level, you get assigned certain missions. And I'm talking about The Crew
Mission
Mission
Deep
Deep
Sea.
Sea.
Thank you. I never remember the order of the words. So I'm talking about that game specifically. There's a few different versions of The Crew. So you pick your difficulty level. Based off of that, you pick X number of missions. And you have the director.
Commander, I think.
Yeah. The submarine captain.
Yeah. And so it's like starting from there, people can like take or pass on a mission based off of like the hands or the cards in your hand. So I really like that because it was like, I like the trick taking aspect, but now it's like trick taking with like a goal in mind and not just being like, oh, I have to hit X amount of tricks or like not get tricks or whatever. Or yeah, like it was just a very fun, like 4 or 5 player experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just
That
any
good
teamwork,
shots.
but silent teamwork.
Oh,
Yeah.
You
yes.
can't talk.
Yeah, no, that's another element that can like make. Yeah, so
You have
it's funny,
limited
we're-
communication. You have this token that you can move around in front of you to communicate 3 basic things. Like, this is my last card of this color. This is my lowest card of this color.
Or highest.
Or highest. Yeah, that's what it is.
But you can only do that once per round.
Once per
Each
round.
player can only do that once per round.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
very limited.
And it's just a visual
information.
communication. You can't talk about your hands.
Because that's what, yeah, we played about like 5 or 6 rounds. And then I was like, oh, I'm giving bad information or like not well timed information. So I often found that I was like wasting it. And it's so interesting. We were just talking about how like cooperative games can be super social. And then it's like, that's a game where it's silent. Hanabi is a co-op game where it's like you're silent and, or like you give very basic information and like no other table talk. Sky Team, a 2-player co-op game to try to land a plane. But I think that kind of like limiting factor is also super interesting because then when the game's over, you have like the debrief.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the whole story afterwards. Oh my gosh, why did you play that card? Because I could only do this.
Yes.
You didn't. Yeah, but I couldn't tell you. And yeah.
Mysterium is the same way. Why is the silent ghost giving me this card? What does he want me to interpret from this stupid symbol that's on here? What am I supposed to get out of it? And meanwhile, the ghost is going, why do you not see it? It's very obvious. Look at the card.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest benefits of co-op games is the stories you tell afterwards. Because you'll spend however long the game is, trick-taking, game, it's, maybe 5
Quick
minutes.
rounds. Yeah.
Right? Pandemic, it's an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, it depends. But like you play these games and you've been cooperating together to solve this thing. And then afterwards you have, like, you call it the debrief, right? But you have the story afterwards and you can talk about it. And it's a real unique space in gaming, I feel like, when stories are being told after the fact.
Do you find if a co-op game, you find that you're like winning it all the time or you're losing it all the time, does that impact your enjoyment of the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And or like how much or how so?
I feel like with Pandemic, at least base level Pandemic, I rarely ever play it anymore because I feel like I've kind of
Figured it out.
figured that one out.
Yeah.
Certainly the seasons, the legacy versions made it a bit more interesting, but I can't tell you the last time that I played true base level Pandemic. That said, most of the competitive or the cooperative games that I have, I'm gonna fight with competitive versus cooperative this whole podcast. I think most of the cooperative games that I have come with enough variability and enough different scenarios and situations the way you can play it, whether it's characters or play setup or missions, that it's easy to go back to them and just play them over and over again. I do find as well, and Dwayne, I know you might be in the same boat as well, I play a lot of cooperative games solo. And just play multiple hands to play through the game scenarios.
Yeah, that's all. Like I mentioned, like playing Pandemic. Like I've played that on BGA, and being able to do that solo has been nice. And we'll have to save that for another episode. We don't have time to talk about solo gaming, but yeah, that is another benefit to some co-op games.
It is one of my favorite facts about co-op games, knowing that if I buy this and I can't find anybody to play it, I can still sit down and actually play the game. And JK, I know you and I are both the kinds of gamers. James, Emily, you might do this. But when we get a new game, co-op, competitive, whatever, a lot of times I'll sit down, pull it out, make 2 or 3 different players and just kind of play it out. But I don't really count that playing the game. I count that as learning the game. Yeah. Whereas with a co-op game, yeah, this is an actual play. Even if I'm setting it up for the first time to learn it. I did that this week with Marvel Zombies. Yeah. I sat down to learn the game and instantly realized, oh, this is the kind of co-op game where I can play the game on my own with 4 different characters. And I'm not losing anything by doing that. I'm making all the decisions. There's no chat about the game, which is one of the things I love about big gaming, is hanging out with people and talking things through. But it's still a great way to play that game.
To sing the praises of Bardwood Grove again one more time. I actually set that up to play it and learn it the other night with the idea that I was going to set up the game. I was going to play maybe a third of the game and then stop, and played all the way to its completion. So it's really good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing that one. I don't go as far as you guys as playing turns, but I will open a game up, set up all the components, and then open the rule book and kind of learn it that way, just so I have that visual connection to learning it. So I'll set it up and go through the rule book at the same time, but I don't go through turns. But the more I see you guys do it, it kind of makes me feel like I might start doing that.
It's enjoyable. It's for me, it's like doing a puzzle. Yeah. You know, you're figuring out how to work things out.
So, does anybody have a most played co-op game? Do you know what it would be if I asked you on the spot?
Sheer numbers, for me, probably Marvel United or Cthulhu Death May Die.
All right.
Yeah, for me, it's Legendary because I'm nearing my 100th play of that. And most of that is solo. I'd say 80% of that is solo.
Really?
Lately, it's been Pandemic, but I'm hoping to get back on the Legendary train.
I know another co-op train we need to get back on, Emily, and that's a little train called Too Many Bones.
Oh, yes. Why are you bringing these stuff so late in the conversation?
One of my favorite co-op games. I had to get it in there somewhere because it's too good. I think the price point may scare a lot of people away. But it is brilliant.
Because I thought about looking at like the rule book. I'm like, okay, let's see if I can figure this out. And I'm just like so glad Dwayne has this figured out. Because it's like, I don't think I could lead myself through a game yet. It would still take more effort.
Oh, it took hours of sitting with the game. I had the rule book in one hand and the FAQ in the other hand, and just going back and forth, getting on the forums to double check things. All of the
scenarios. Yeah. I would describe that one, Too Many Bones, as like D&D light, because it has that like kind of campaign story aspect, and
it's almost a lifestyle game. I'm sorry. It's almost a lifestyle game in that, like, if you play that, that's kind of one of the only things you really need to play because there's so much depth and variety to it.
Yeah.
Dwayne, do we need to finally make another attempt at getting Gloomhaven back on the table?
Yeah. Let's get our Gloomhaven back.
Okay. I'll say, not including legacy games, my most played is probably Descent. First edition.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I played a lot of Descent back in the day.
Me too. A lot of it. So, but legacy games, you played 12 plus sessions. So between the Pandemic legacies, it probably has it beat. So not including those, definitely Descent. But man, overall, cooperative games,
play them. They're fun.
They're
fun.
So fun.
Don't
playing
be
by yourself,
playing
with friends doesn't matter.
Yeah. Don't be so loud that you end up being that alpha gamer and make people feel like they can't participate. That's just not fun for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But they're great ways to introduce people to the hobby, right? Because not everyone is hyper competitive, which a lot of modern board games are, which people aren't used to. They haven't played them. So they're great intros. Just have fun with them.
Woo. Yeah.
Tell some stories afterwards.
Absolutely. listeners, our game of the show for this episode is Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars is published by Fricks Games. It's designed by Jacob Frixelius, and the art is by Isaac Frixelius and Daniel Frixelius. Wow, the whole Frixelius family is involved in this game.
Everybody at this company is related.
Mm-hmm.
It was released in 2016 and plays 1 to 5 players, but it's at its most gleeful with 3 players. Crew, what did you think about our game of Terraforming Mars?
Do you want me to try and explain it first?
Oh,
yes,
yeah, let's do
please,
that.
JK.
Wait, we have an order to these things,
Yeah.
Dwayne. Get with it. Okay.
Man. So in the game of Terraforming Mars, all of the players are different competing cooperations. See now, let me start that one over.
Wait a minute.
No, hold on. I think you start over and you do that again because that's hilarious.
So in the game of Terraforming Mars, all of the players are competing corporations working to turn Mars into a habitable planet. To do so, they have to place 9 oceans somewhere on the surface of Mars. They also have to raise both the oxygen level and the temperature level to habitable conditions. The way you do this over the course of the game is by drawing from a deck of cards, choosing which cards you want to keep, and ultimately entering them into the game, which is going to do a variety of actions. Some will be placing cities, some will be placing forests, some will be doing completely unrelated things like creating bacteria or creating new animals or pulling meteors out of the sky. Over the course of many turns, each player will gradually build their tableau of cards to try and build the best engine to be the most successful Mars terraformer. It's hotter, wetter, and gassier. That's Terraforming Mars.
I so hate that you just said that.
I know. I love that you hate it.
We talked about this in our group chat, and everyone knows my feelings on this. And when he said that, everyone looked at me.
Count on me for fun.
Oh, man.
Terraforming Mars is great.
All right, well, that's it, guys.
Yeah.
We'll,
That's a fun game.
All right. So, Terraforming Mars, I think I've said this almost every episode now. My most played game from last year. Our play of it has probably been my worst showing
Yay.
since like my first or second
I thought it was
play
great.
of it. I think it's reached that level to me where I'm like, let's try something different. Like every time you play, you might get a new corporation that you haven't had before, and so that can influence your strategy. And we played with the Prelude expansion, so that helps kind of like speed up the.
I'll come back to that in a second.
All right, JK's going to come back to the Preludes. So I was playing with a corporation, and I'm forgetting the name, but I tried going with like the energy strategy. Because I thought I had some good preludes that helped me get a lot of money, some titanium steel. So I was like, okay, that's going to help me get cards at a lower cost if they have that special tag. There's a lot of different things that can go on with this game. And I had a card in my starting hand where I could turn energy into a science resource that would allow me to build up victory points over the generations. My fatal flaw for this playthrough is that I could not build up my energy production fast enough. But I say all that to say it was fun to try that strategy because I have not tried like the energy strategy. Like there are games where I focus on like heat so I can raise the temperature, or I focus on plants so I can get all these forests. But energy did not work out for me that time.
You know, in the 8 years since Terraforming Mars was originally released, they have put out a number of expansions for this game. There's been at least 4 or 5 base expansions, plus a deluxe edition that kind of reinvented many of the components. And there's currently a Kickstarter to get us new play mats and I think one more expansion. One of the criticisms of the game early on was that it was slow moving right in the early turns. It took a long time to really build up your engine and kind of get the game going. They addressed this with an expansion called Prelude, which Emily referenced. And Prelude kind of gets you some starting cards, builds out your engine, and immediately gives you something to think about as a goal and a target and how to play over the initial turns of the game. For me, when you play Terraforming Mars, you play with Prelude. There's no other way to play the game.
Absolutely.
If they do a new edition of that game, they should really just include Prelude with the base game. I think they've already got one mini expansion in the base game, the corporation.
See?
I know.
See? We're all going to do it now.
Maybe we should have done co-op games on a different day. But there's already one expansion that comes with the base game. They should just make Prelude included in the base game and leave Prelude 2 as an add-on to buy later, because it is so much better with Prelude.
So, small little tangent, that's becoming more and more common for these older games that have had quite a few expansions released. They're all getting a new trend in board games is being re-released with some of the expansions baked into the experience. So a couple of examples would be Everdell. Everdell's getting re-released with Everdell Far Shore. So it's a whole brand new game with a couple of the more basic expansions kind of baked into it. The Raiders of the North Sea trilogy from Garfield Games got completely re-released as Raiders of Scythia, with all the expansions from the Raiders kind of baked into this new core box. So it would not surprise me if they did that, because it basically gives an old game new legs to keep making money for the publisher. So yeah, I would totally see that happening if that ever got re-released, and maybe they'd bring some new art to the table as well. It's a little brown.
It's not.
I know it's Mars.
And even the card art is not super dynamic.
It's interesting.
It's a lot of clip art. It looks kind of like. I do believe at one point Freselius Games did get a little bit of heat because they were using AI generated artwork.
I remember hearing about that. I never did any further research than just like hearsay and conjecture, but I did find that interesting. I talked to at least one person who was not getting in on the new Kickstarter because of that.
Yeah, I think it was specific to the new Kickstarter. Yeah, it was something recently that happened, and I can't remember what they decided. I think they backpedaled on it. I can't remember exactly, but I haven't heard anything else about it. So.
But it's interesting that it's members of the Frixelius family that are the artists. So, like, they decided to put themselves out of a job. Interesting.
Could be.
Yeah, Terraforming Mars, man, like you said, 8 years old. It kind of started, I don't even know if I'd call it a trend, but when, JK mentioned, playing cards, it is a large deck of cards. It is cards on cards on cards on cards.
So many.
And, the most recent game that took inspiration from that is definitely Arc Nova. They get compared all the time because of that. Right? Big deck of cards, cards that have tags on them, and all the cards play off of each other. Right? If you have a card with this tag, this thing happens. And but when I think about it, I can't think of a lot of other games that have done that, even though it's been around for 8 years. Maybe it's a lot of work to make that many cards.
Well, yeah, because there may be some exceptions in the deck, but almost every card is unique.
Yeah.
I think there might be a repeat or two.
No, I don't think there's any repeats.
Okay.
There's similar like themes of like spend energy to do this, or put a microbe on this, put a plant on this, like stuff like that. But
similar, but not exact.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So I am definitely the least experienced Terraforming Mars player at the table. If y'all noticed me being a little bit quiet from the beginning of the conversation, it's because I just wanted to hear what y'all had to say before I chimed in.
I have some negatives on Terraforming Mars.
Yeah, I do, but I actually don't have as many as y'all probably think I was going to have coming into the conversation.
Oh.
I've only played it twice. Once was probably over a year ago. And I'm not the kind of gamer that can internalize things, off of one play. Mm-hmm. Like I get that I know enough about it. I got the vibe of it. I kind of remember the basics, but I need a refresher to relearn the rules. And I will say, if Mars is an inhospitable planet, the path through which I played my second game of this was probably one of the most. This isn't a reflection on y'all. I'm trying to make a joke here. An inhospitable environment to play Terraforming Mars for the second time.
3 people that are kind of passionate about the game.
That have played it a lot?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? What's so unwelcoming about that experience?
Well, not just that, but, so we can get going. We had that kind of quick teach refresher. which was the appropriate thing to do. Absolutely. It's not, this was not a time to completely reteach the game from scratch. I wasn't going to do that to you guys. But not the best scenario to come in to try and have a successful game of Terraforming Mars. So it was a challenge. But I remember my first play, which was right after a super comprehensive teach. I was able to connect all the dots and I had time to internalize things. And so I know what it's like to have a fun experience, but I did also, after our play of this one and looking back on it, the game really isn't that complicated.
It's not. It's surprisingly uncomplicated.
It is surprisingly uncomplicated. The only complicated thing about this game, which makes it hard to internalize and hard to really do anything with on your first play, is the cards. Because there's so many of them.
That's what I have been so curious to hear how you thought about this game a week after playing it. Because I just remember we played it, you were tired, like we just mentioned, three of us really know the game intimately, and you're just trying to keep up, and you're like, oh, there's just so much going on. I checked
out firsthand.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna tell everybody. I'll tell the audience. I checked out in the first turn because I chose poorly on the initial draft of the cards because I wasn't connecting the dots between my cards in my first play of the game. I didn't have the connection between the resources I needed. It just wasn't there. It was late. I was tired. And so the first play went really, really bad. I was like, yep, that's going to be it right there. And we'll get to how it ended later. But yeah, it's not that hard of a game.
It's really not.
Because I think once you get a handle on the logic of it, it's very easy because the design of it is so smart in a lot of ways. Like we talked about in our very first episode of Heat, every icon means something. And in Terraforming Mars, you have your player board. If you see an icon where it's energy and then it's surrounded by a brown border, that's talking about your production track of energy. Whereas if you
mean the waffle,
as Dwayne so affectionately calls it, if you just see energy without the waffle, then it's talking about energy resources and stuff like that. That once you get a handle on it, it's really easy to just kind of pick up.
Yeah. But so, looking back on it overall, I think that the most challenging thing of Terraforming Mars is being a new player and just not knowing the importance of, not the importance, maybe the weight of the cards that you have, right? Okay, this card tells me I'm going to do this thing. What's the impact of this really going to be on my overall strategy, on my overall gameplay? Is it that important? What's the opportunity of this card, right? It says I get to, whenever I do this, I put a token on it or quote unquote an animal on it or whatever, right? But I do this thing, whenever it happens, I put a token on it. Is this really that good? I don't know. And you don't really know that stuff until you play the game a couple of times or a few times because you just don't know what's important and what's not.
And how good a card is, a card that you have, how good it is might be influenced by other cards in your hand and cards coming later in the game. So this is a frustration with Arc Nova because I don't play Arc Nova as much as I play Terraforming Mars. I don't know the deck as well as I know the Terraforming Mars deck. So I have an idea what my expectations are for what might come out, which makes some cards a little more solid than others. But it is a game because of that one thing, it is worth replay. But also the corporations. One thing I took from our most recent play was I would really like to sit down because my daughter and I play Terraforming Mars all the time, and it is not a great game of two-player because it takes a long time for two players to terraform that planet. But to keep my interest in the game, what I'm going to do is start retiring corporations after I've played them and try to go through all the corporations and see how they play. Because I feel like there's certain corporations, at the beginning of the game, you're dealt two corporations and have to choose one. Yep. Somehow I feel like I get the same corporations a lot, so I'm going to start retiring them so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's why I started keeping track of what corporations I play as in my recording app. Because it's I feel like I've played Ecoline so many times. I feel like I've played Phobolog so many times. And I'm like, what are these other corporations that can allow me to try a different strategy?
Oh, I knew that when y'all dealt those out and JK went, oh, my favorite corporation.
That's when it ended. The game was over.
James, one mistake I think we made is it's been so long since you've played, and because all of us have at least probably 20 plus plays, we should have pushed you towards that beginner corporation a little better, because I feel like it is very strong for new players, because you get to keep all 10 of your you get to keep all 10 of your cards from the original hand at no cost, ? I think that's right. So it is a very good way to get new players into the hand. That way you're not from the opening hand. What are you going to keep? 4 to 6 cards, maybe. You don't keep a lot of that hand. And the beginner corporation will let the newer player keep all of their cards. You start off with pretty good funds, and that way you're not limiting your path to victory by discarding cards that, this card turns out it was a lot better than I thought it was when I discarded it. So it's very helpful.
Or keeping the wrong cards like I did.
Yeah.
And the mistake I made was super obvious. I just wasn't connecting the dots, because I just didn't have the time to internalize it, right? I took 2 cards that I needed resources to pay for on turn 1, which I didn't have the resources for. I just, it seemed stupid, but it just wasn't there. So yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that. That way, I have all these cards in my hand, and I can figure out on the fly, okay, I can see how this makes sense now. I have something I can do to at least be successful on my first turn.
So I find it interesting that you guys identified this as not a complicated game, because one of my problems that I have with Terraforming Mars, which may do, you could probably identify by the fact that I gave just a very, very light overview of how to play the game. I do not want to teach this or play it with new players. One, I think it's one of those games that a new player to the game is severely undermanned. They're gonna struggle with finding the concepts. They might have an advantage on cards if you leave them with the base corporation, but they're not going to figure out how to make that engine work on that first run. You're going to beat them. You're going to beat them. And it's really hard to teach some of the nuances to the game that you guys all identified. True. So it's one that for me, I love the game. I will play it anytime you ask me to, if everybody there has played it before. I don't want to handhold somebody through this game.
That's what, like, I meet up pretty regularly with some friends to like play it almost once a month. And the first time we played it, I think the experience took 6 hours. Granted, that was like with 2 snack breaks. We were really taking our time, but it's like we tried to have a Terraforming Mars night at our board game meetups. And like, I think one table finished their game in the allotted time of the event, because it, like, especially with new players, it does have that learning curve. So it's like, if you are teaching this with new players, I think it's more of like an investment of like, all right, this is the teaching game. Like, sometimes people want to have like a practice round. Like, this is going to have to be like the practice game. If you want to enjoy future plays with that new person.
Yeah, I guess when I'm saying it's not difficult, it's just when you take I shouldn't say take the cards out of the picture, but when you take that piece of it that you just don't know until you've played it out of the conversation, like the core mechanics of how things are connected makes sense. Like, it's not a complicated thing about, okay, the temperature's moving up here, the water's moving up here, right? When you put water out, this happens. Anything next to the cities gets this points. That's like pretty common Euro stuff.
The structure of the game is very straightforward. The structure of the game is straightforward, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so looking back on it, it's all in those cards. It's all in understanding what to do with the cards you have in front of you and what's a good play and what's a bad play. And that's the challenging part.
My other complaint about the game, and this is going back 8 years, so it may have been resolved. I don't know, because I haven't played with anybody that hasn't upgraded their game in quite some time. The original player boards that came with the game were just a simple cardboard mat.
Yeah.
And
it not even, like it's paper or like cardstock.
Cardstock,
and you are moving a lot of cubes around, which it's key what numbers these cubes are on. And the slightest jostling of the table ruins your game.
No, that is a huge complaint. Because I realized, I was like, oh, I haven't ever played with those cardstock mats. Like, the people I play with were very kind to let us use like the better Etsy, wooden mats.
Those are nice.
But since they've upgraded their copy, I have the card stock mat now, and I was
I've upgraded mine twice, and I think I gifted my original upgrade to somebody else that still had the cardboard mat. So, yeah, do not play on the cardboard mats. You'll hate your life.
I think now the recessed mats like we played on come in one of the expansions.
Are those? Oh, really? Okay.
Maybe colonies.
Okay.
Yeah, because when I got my first purchase of Terraforming Mars was not the most recent Kickstarter, but the one they did before that for the big box and all of the expansions. As I got it and started putting it together, I like to keep my expansions sealed until I'm ready to get into them. And so I go to set up the game. I'm like, I was promised those nice boards, and they're not here. And I started to freak out a little bit, and then I started opening the expansions, and I found them in there.
Nice.
I think that Kickstarter expansion still has the biggest snafu that makes me laugh more than anything else.
You mean when they claimed that was the end of Terraforming Mars and there would never, ever be any more ever?
No. When you could order upgraded metal component cubes, and there were a quantity of 150 cubes?
There are a lot of cubes.
There's a lot of cubes, and they individually bagged each cube.
At the factory.
Now, for you gamers out there who are thinking, this sounds like a dream, you're telling me I get all these extra bags? No, these bags were so small, you cannot fit anything except those one cube in that bag. And they are hard to open. My fingers, the pain. So I just started taking scissors and cutting through 5 or 6 of them at a time because there's no sense in holding on to those bags.
No reusing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what a waste our precious environment is paying for.
Do we want to talk about any of the expansions before we talk about our Glee meter?
Besides Prelude, I don't really see the need to talk about any of the expansions. We didn't play with any.
We didn't play with but any. I didn't know if any of the hosts had any particular strong memories.
You can mix and match them. I think I've played Venus.
I have played Venus.
Which essentially just adds another board, another place to colonize, another thing to do.
Another track that is not a goal of the game. Yeah. Like, oh, you didn't rate whatever. I can't even remember. It's been so long since I've played with the Venus expansion. I can't even remember if you're raising temperature. You're doing something on Venus with the stats. But it's not important to the end of the game.
It's as long another, as Mars is terraformed. 20 cards with the Venus expansion.
If you're enjoying playing Terraforming Mars and you kind of burnt yourself out on main game and Prelude, mix in an expansion every now and then. None of them are critical to the game other than Prelude.
Yeah.
Honestly, the best expansions are probably Elysium and Hellas.
I do love Elysium map.
Yeah.
It's a great map. And it comes with different awards and different milestones. The other 2 expansions that I've played with, it's Colonies and Turmoil, which I have heard people like Colonies.
Colonies is good.
And I've heard mixed reviews on Turmoil, but I am looking forward to trying that one again. It adds a little bit more of a very a more competitive, not vindictive,
there's
but
a political,
an aggressive,
it's like take that
aspect.
Stuff in Turmoil, right? I remember, isn't there more take that in Turmoil?
Yes.
It introduces some of that.
Yeah.
I feel like
there's not enough of that in the base game.
And there's a potential for you to go down on the TR track.
Oh no. Emily, you and I should play with Turmoil sometime. JK as well. James, you may want to get another few games in first.
Yeah, no, I won't be in another game.
So, any final thoughts before
I guess
we keep it to play or trade it away?
No.
All right.
So this is a high ranking game for me. It's not in my top 10. It's probably somewhere lodged in my top 30, I would say. But he has
a very meticulous top 100 games list every year.
I've done multiple upgrades, a lot of fancy bits. I've got the newest Kickstarter with the neoprene mats coming. So it's a game I enjoy playing under the right circumstances with the right people. It's going to be in my collection forever. So this is a keeper for sure.
Yeah, you might be surprised to hear me say, but this would be a keep it to play. It's not currently in my collection. I do have Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, which I really enjoy, and it's kind of Terraforming Mars. It's funny to call it the card game because it's already tons of cards, but it's streamlined and is pretty dang close to the full experience. I know some folks who would prefer the original, but Ares Expedition is great. I do have that. I would like to have the original in the collection because I do actually think it's a really well-designed game. There's a reason it is as popular as it is, and I want to let one bad experience kind of shadow that.
That's the spirit, James. While you're mentioning Ares Expedition, I realized we didn't even talk about the dice game, Terraforming Mars, the dice game.
I forgot there was a dice game.
Yeah, it's new. Just came out recently.
Yeah, we got to preview it at Gen Con, and I think it's similar to Ares Expedition in where it's that streamlined Terraforming Mars experience. Also had mixed reviews among my friends on that, but I enjoyed it.
Randomness is always a weird thing when you throw dice into the mix.
Yes. But for me, this is a very easy keep it to play.
Oh, I'm definitely keeping Terraforming Mars to play. As I said earlier, my daughter's favorite game. We play a ton of Terraforming Mars. Sometimes we'll like just turn on a show and kind of play the game while we're watching the show because we know it so well. We can play without putting a lot of thought into it. I'm gonna keep Terraforming Mars to play. Going to Ares Expedition, I'm going to trade that away because I already have Race for the Galaxy. That does it better.
In the same boat there.
That is fair.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's 4 out of 4 keepers on the hotter, wetter, gassier Gleeples.
We had to get in one more time. Speaking of hotter, wetter, gassier, who won that game? Well, that's not a segue at all, but I just had to get in one more time for Emily's sake.
You know, as James said, you guys had the unfortunate luck of dealing me my favorite corporation in the entire game. One which I've practiced several times. I have limited wins on it, but this was one of those wins.
But guess you didn't get last place.
Yeah, James took third on this one. And I am choking on my own rage over this game because I lost to JK by 2 points. And it was a solvable problem that without going back into the complaint section too much, I do hate how hard it is to calculate exactly where everyone's going to be at the end of the game. So, you might not always make you make the best choice for the moment and maybe not the best choice for the long run. And that's where those 2 points were for me.
I spent my last turn of the game figuring that the game was going to end that turn and kind of looking at what was on everybody's boards. I had a move that I could have made that might have helped my engine, but ultimately I think it would have cost me enough points in what I was spending that it would have cost me a couple of the rewards at the end of the game, which would have lost the game. Yeah. So,
well, and since we walked back into a critique corridor,
go on.
I'll also mention that I was only 6 points behind JK.
Yeah, it was a close game.
I did not try. I cannot express enough how little I was trying on this game. And I ended up in third place.
Pound me into the dirt. I touch you.
Third place, 6 points away from first place. I don't know what that says about Terraforming Mars, how that's critique, but take that for what you will.
It's balanced. That's what it says to me.
JK did bring that. We did have this conversation after the game last week, and James made that point, and JK made that point, and I thought about that a lot this week, and I'm like, you know what? I think JK has a point. The game is with 2 players, it can be a little more swingy. There's a little wider gap that happens in scores according to my stats. Our game was super tight.
Yeah.
And we have James, who was just trying to get through it. We have Emily, who's an experienced player. And it's one of those games where, unfortunately, not getting the right cards can hurt you. You should be able to zig around that here and there. Sometimes
I did not zig around that.
For someone who successfully executed on their strategy so well, I feel like you should have been way farther ahead of me. You should have been rewarded for that. So I don't know.
Yes, although I will admit that the early part of the game, my strategy was not going well. I fell into the same boat that Emily fell into, that I couldn't get the energy cards that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, JK, according to my notes, since you won Terraforming Mars, that means you will choose our next game of the show. JK, what are we playing?
So I had trouble with it today, and I'm gonna throw a decision back to you guys. We are gonna play one of 2 classics with our next board game.
Let's go.
Classics.
Will it be
No.
El Grande or Castles of Burgundy?
As soon as you said El Grande, I knew it was whatever the second choice was going
Okay.
to
Me
be.
too. High five, Dwayne.
Yay!
Hey!
We're gonna play Castles of Burgundy then.
All right.
Oh, wait. Do you have the nice one?
Absolutely, I
I'm
do.
so excited because I've been actually, and that's back on the not the Kickstarters, but the
Game Found.
The Game Found.
We just finished that.
Yeah, and so I've really been wanting to check that out. Burgundy is one of those mid-tier games for me. Like, it's fine, I get it, and I will. If you suggest it, I'm going to play it.
What is next episode talk, Dwayne?
Have you played this before, Emily?
I have not played this before.
Oh, you're in for a good
So this
night.
will be
I'm kind of surprised. A good friend of Emily and mine, it's one of his favorite games. So I'm really surprised that you haven't played it before. So
Yep.
this will be new to Emily. Emily is the new James. Speaking of future games of the show, is there a game you'd like us to play? Send your suggestions and any thoughts you have on Terraforming Mars to pod@gleefulmeeple.com.
So I think we've talked enough about games that it's time to play a game on air. No, not a board game, a game about board games. This week, I have a question. Is that really your favorite game? Where I aim to find out if the hosts pay attention to the games they play the most.
The answer is no.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So, Gleeples, this is going to be a little bit tailored to each host, where I have prepared 3 questions each based off of one game per host. So I went through y'all's
The math checks
BGG.
out. I got this.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
I know. I'm like, do I have the right numbers? I went on your BGG logged plays to see what you guys played the most, and formulated questions on it. Pretty easy. It's just trivia.
It's just trivia, y'all.
So I'm interested to see
This is an entrapment.
how it goes.
I wonder if I have a question about Monopoly.
There is opportunity for 1 bonus point, but everything else is just like, if you get it, point. Don't get it, no point.
Nice.
Cool.
Bring it on.
All right.
Bring it.
Who would like to go first?
Dwayne.
Yeah, Dwayne would like to go first. I'm very excited. I'm mostly excited. Let me be clear. I'm mostly excited to figure out which game Emily picked for me. Not so excited to embarrass
That has
myself.
me a little panicky. Yeah, we'll see.
All right. So, Dwayne, your questions relate to the Welcome to the Moon series.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Your first question. Welcome to the Moon offers players a campaign mode. What is the name of the other mode of play?
It's not solitaire. What is the other name of play? I don't know.
It is called Adventure Mode.
Adventure mode.
All right. Next question. Name 4 of the 6 actions you can see on a starship card.
Name 4 of the 6 actions that you can see on a starship card.
I'm going to hate this game.
So those are the...
Dwayne's like, there's starship
We're going to have
cards?
to start with, what is a starship card?
So I did look up this terminology in the rule book. The starship cards are the ones you flip over. And so you pick the number in the action.
Oh, okay. So the action, you're asking what actions are
Yes.
available from. Okay, yeah. Okay. So, I don't know if I even know their real names because I kind of come up with nicknames. There's Rubits.
Yep.
There are, I call it the calendar action. I'm going to come back to that because I can't ever remember. Planning. It's the planning action.
Yep.
Woohoo. How many of these do I have to get?
2 more.
Plants?
Yep.
Okay. Astronauts.
Yes.
Oh my God, I got a question right.
So the other options were energy and water.
Yes. True.
I like the way you say robots.
Oh, yeah. I picked that up from Rod Serling.
Okay.
Ribbits.
Robots.
Ribbits?
Ribbits.
All right. This one might be a little tricky. In the original Welcome to, you are playing as an architect to build the best new town in 1950s America.
True.
By adding resources to a pool, hiring employees, and more. This is one of those like math word problems where you don't pay attention to the first sentence.
Okay, fair enough.
But the actual question, what is your goal, thematically speaking, in Welcome to the Moon?
To leave the planet Earth. To establish a colony in space.
Yeah.
Earth is trashed, y'all. I mean, we partied in our neighborhoods. We partied in Vegas. We have trashed the planet, and we have to GTFO.
You have to specifically go to the moon or to another planet?
Well, it is called Welcome to
the Moon.
The
So
Moon.
you're trying to make the moon hotter, wetter, and gassier?
Oh, you're right.
Yes.
I should have seen that coming.
But
But yes, Dwayne gets it. The exact words I have written down are save the human race through space colonization. And I think your answer basically says that.
all right.
Terraforming the moon.
So we're gonna say
Coming soon
We're gonna say
from
2 out of
Stronghold
3
Games.
for Dwayne.
But you have an opportunity for a bonus.
Oh, I had no idea.
So in Welcome to the Moon, there's several kind of like, I was going to say player boards. There's several that you can play. They all have different names. In which adventure can you find factories to activate?
I think it's the 3rd one, but I have no idea what it's called.
Can you describe it?
Yeah.
You might find the answer if you describe it.
Okay, so on the third board's actually kind of neat because not only do you have to have your numbers in the rows increasing, you also have to have them increasing in columns from the bottom to the top.
It's the Excel spreadsheet board.
Yeah, there's you've got factories and radar dish. I think I'm thinking about the right board. Moonbase.
It is not. It is called the Mine.
Oh, that's the fourth board, I think. I wasn't even thinking about the right board. I had no chance of getting that one. That was fun.
All right. So that puts Dwayne at a 2 out of 3. No bonus.
Hey, Emily, may I ask you a question about Welcome to the Moon?
Sure.
Okay. On the first board, which is the rocket ship heading to the moon, there is an Easter egg of a famous sci-fi villain. What is hidden on the first board?
You pointed this out when we played it a year ago.
And probably every time since then.
And I don't remember.
There is a Dalek loading things onto the ship.
Ah, very fun fact.
Emily, what's a Dalek?
I don't know. I was hoping you would not call me out on that. How dare you?
What's a Dalek?
All right. JK, you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Your game is Scout.
Oh, okay.
All right. I was afraid I was a little bit too easy on JK. We'll see if I'm right. JK, scoring, or at least in the version of Scout that we play, is handled by those little scoring chips. What are the numbers on those scoring chips?
1 minus 1, 2 minus 2, 5 minus 5, 10 minus 10, and 20 minus 20.
Yes. Perfect. On Scout is a game about recruiting acts to your circus. We have cards 1 through 10. Can you name at least 3 of the acts displayed on those cards?
Trapeze artist.
That's one.
Strongman.
Nope.
Then I'm done.
I think there's a unicycle on there.
There is a
isn't there?
unicycle.
Yeah, clowns.
Yep.
Ringmaster.
I think
No.
he is
Just go all circle elephants.
I know, right? I know. I thought he might get that just based off of naming circus.
That's what I was going with. Yep.
All right, so that's going to be a no. JK, how many 10s are there in a 3-player game?
That's a solid question, Emily.
Okay, so in a 4-player game, you take out the 10 and 9 card, which is going to leave 4 10s.
0 10s.
In a 3-player game.
In a 3-player game.
I thought you started off real strong.
Yeah.
I was like, I think he's going to get it.
Oh, no.
Working backwards.
All right, let's see if you can come back with our bonus. According to BGG, what are the 3 mechanisms in Scout?
So this game constantly gets called a trick-taking game, and it is not trick-taking. It is ladder climbing.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Bluffing.
Nope.
All right, I'm done.
Can I guess? Can I guess?
Yeah, go for it.
Is one of them hand management?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
There's a third one?
Yeah.
Hand management, ladder climbing.
Set collection?
No.
No.
That went through my mind, too,
Yeah.
because you are kind of collecting sets, but not in the traditional.
So,
If someone said this is a set collection game,
do
I'd
they
be
call it
very
a
upset.
trick-taking game?
no.
Okay,
No.
good.
I was thinking that too, yeah. I don't know.
The third one is score and reset.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that may be a mechanic I have never heard
No.
called by name before.
You play a
But
full hand of cards, reset it, deal it back
Score,
It
out.
makes
reset.
total
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so that puts
Would not have gotten
JK
that.
at a
I got
1 out of
one.
3. And in his defense, he did get portions of answers.
Oh, is
Don't
there
defend me.
is there
Don't
partial
defend me.
credit?
So you're telling me I have a chance?
All right, James,
Oh, I don't know.
your game is Millie Fiore.
Oh,
Oh.
hello.
Now I'm kind of jealous.
I know.
Okay.
I debated whether to give this to JK or James. All right. Your first question. When using a card for the alternative move to move your ship forward, what is the range of numbers in that steering wheel icon?
1 through 5.
Yes, That is correct. Your second question.
Woo-hoo.
What is the subtitle of the game? It's a very pretty box cover.
It is.
It has these big letters, Millefiori.
Artisans of Florence.
No. It is
Glassmakers of Florence.
no.
Festivals of
no
Life.
Florence. It is In the Glittering Lagoon.
Oh,
my
you're
gosh.
right. Oh, man. What a weird.
But you have an opportunity to make it up. There are 4 areas on the board that have like 3 or 4 icons. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Pick an area and name the icons in that area. Bonus point is if you can name the area of the board. So you can either tell me what the area is by the color or by the name that the rule book assigns it.
Okay.
This one is tricky.
I know all the sections. I'm trying to think. I know the marketplace. I think it's called the marketplace. And it has the swan, the vase, the cup. Necklace? This is a swan, right? Yeah, swan, vase, cup. If it's
You're gonna kick yourself.
if it's not that, we have fire, silt, pigment. What's the fourth one? Fire, silt, pigment, wood? Is there wood in that? I'm gonna do that, and then the furnace. I can't remember what it's called.
All right. JK, would you like to clarify?
So in the orange section, you have fire, silt, pigment, and crystal.
Crystal.
In the marina, you have the swan, the goblet. What was the other one you said?
Swan, goblet, vase,
And earrings.
earrings, not necklace. But is it the market? What's it called?
Now I'm wondering if I was looking at a different rule book than what you all have, because I wrote down trade instead of market.
No, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Glasses, carafes, jewelry, and swan. So James did mention 8 correct icons, but they weren't the rule book terms.
Right.
Do I get halvesies points?
I will give you the point for the question, not the bonus.
Okay, I'll take it.
So what's the other one?
The orange is the
shell?
workshops, where you have ash, pigments, lime, and quartz. So that was your like wood, fire, crystal
Yeah.
pigments. Yeah.
Shell, lobster. We always call it broccoli, lobster.
broccoli.
And something else. I can't remember what the third seafood one is.
Fish.
Fish.
And
That would
it's-
make sense.
Then you have
Crab is what the rule book says.
Okay.
Instead of lobster.
A cross,
a griffin. Cross griffin. It's a circular one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Is it a
pendant?
sand dollar?
Like a pendant or something like that, isn't it? It's a big circle.
It's a...
Coin.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah, I knew it was a circle.
Yeah, lion, coin, cross. And that blue-green and the light green section, those animals and what we just
That's
named,
upper class, lower class.
Yes.
or otherwise known as townspeople, yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
The apartments do not have 4 icons.
They do not. They have a key.
that puts James at a 2-3. So I believe we have a tie between Dwayne and James. And I do not have a tiebreaker. So congrats, gentlemen, on knowing your games.
Hey,
Yay, we did it.
We won cooperatively.
Yes, we did.
Share the
That's
victory.
Was it cooperatively or competitively or corporately?
Semi-corporate
Semi-corporate,
cooperatively.
cooperatively. Hotter. Wetter. Gassier.
That's how I felt after doing yard work yesterday.
Hotter, wetter, and gassier. Nice. I like it.
All right.
Do you eat beans while you do yard work? What is happening?
You don't know me.
Guys, I think that's probably going to take us to the end of our episode for tonight.
We got games
we
to
got,
play.
We got a game we got to play
Yeah.
here. So before we do that, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Zima. Zima, it's something different. Be sure to find that at your local stores today. If you want to reach out to us, please do so via email at pod@gleefulmeeple.com or via Instagram at gleefulmeeplepod. By the time you hear this episode, you will be right on top of our Memorial Day picnic. Please come and see us. If you miss out on that, check us out throughout Nashville in June. We anticipate somewhere between 6 to 7 events, depending on how our vendors work out for us. So we will be around. Come find us. Bye.
Have fun.
Bye, Gleeples.
Bye, everybody.